want to hit record, and then we can just keep talking.
Do,
But
do you want? I didn't put my Dragonfly stuff on or anything because I didn't want to, come across inappropriate. Or is this okay? What I'm
no, we're fine. It's casual. It's Friday.
Dragonfly's 150-acre Joint Air Center is a state-of-the-art training facility where we do a lot of R&D, testing, and innovation. And it takes place to ensure that our systems are mission-ready and excel under the circumstances and conditions for which they are destined. We have several flight testing fields where we test systems like our medical delivery drones and FPV initiatives, large warehouses, R&D spaces, and different types of buildings, power lines, and buried structures to test and fine-tune our capabilities for all types of applications. One of the most interesting test fields is this one, because it is gridded off by these precision-measured and GPS-located posts and wires that allow us to pinpoint our performance as we fine-tune our systems. This specific gridded test field that I'm standing in front of here today has been purposely cultivated and graded to provide mixed vegetation and a geologically diverse topography, and can be riddled with a whole host of compositionally and physically diverse landmines dispersed throughout the entire area. This specific field replicates the challenges, natural and humanly engineered conditions, that our teams and drones can encounter in the real world. As we continue to work to identify and map out landmines with major emergency management organizations around the world, this field has been crucial in the testing and the calibration of our aerial mine and anomaly detection systems, so that we can continue to ensure that we are doing our best to deploy the most effective solutions.
So everybody, welcome to Knightscope's Rise of the Robots, episode 11. And yeah, the volume knob goes past 10, it goes to 11. And we've got a special guest today who's actually raised his hand to be the one-on-one town hall guest when I asked on social media who might want to do this. And for some reason, Cam decided to say, yep, I'll do this. So Cam, you want to introduce yourself and why the heck did you say yes?
Bill, thanks so much for letting me participate. I'm honored to be here. I'm a huge fan of what you're doing, how you guys are doing it, and I follow you guys on social, shareholder stuff, everything. Like, it's just so I had the great pleasure of meeting you at a conference about 3 years ago, and was immediately struck by your vision.
It's been 3 years I've known you.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It might even be a bit longer. It's a solid 3 years. No, it was right at the beginning of COVID, right? It was just when the whole big scare.
It was like the last conference or something before all hell broke loose.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. And so not only was your vision incredible, but the tenacity and the grit that I could see you putting into it, the discipline that you were bringing to your product development as a small bit, and the struggles of the crowdfunding and how you were managing and working with your shareholders and how you identified with them. And it's just a highly intricate and complex, set of variables to put that together and to build a world-class product that had as big a vision I remember thinking, it's like, dude, that guy has got his work cut out for him, and
it's a little hard. It's a little difficult.
But what really struck me, I remember who I was sitting with and everything, and I said, but that guy's going to do it. I said, that guy's going to do it. I said, we need to be shareholders of that company. And anyway, I just love supporting entrepreneurs as well, and I understand the struggles. And there's lots of sleepless nights I've had where you've been an inspiration. And I also just think what you're doing with the company and your mission is really important. So
that's very flattering.
an honor to be here.
I'm like, okay, we're gonna have a NASDAQ CEO go grill another NASDAQ CEO. This is gonna be fun. When he said yes, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be cool. And like you've been through a lot as well. Being publicly traded and private and building up, technology companies not easy. But for our audience, you want to tell them a little bit about
that's what you asked,
kind of where you've been and kind of where you're going.
So I've been a technology entrepreneur for 35 plus years. I've done everything from the original cloud computing company, which we had a microcap exit up onto the NASDAQ in the early 2000s, for a couple $1 billion. I've been deeply involved in the payment space where we had another big exit. I co-founded a company that built and put cameras on the outside of the International Space Station to do Earth observation work. We built an immutable blockchain. We built a blockchain that payment system that enabled the purchase of firearms and controlled goods using blockchain technology. My real passion, full-time gig is I'm the co-founder and CEO of the world's oldest commercial drone manufacturer.
How old?
25 years, sir.
Jeez.
Yeah, 25 years. 25 years we've served public safety, military, first responders, agriculture, energy, search and rescue. And in fact, in 2013, a Dragonflyer drone was credited as the first drone that ever saved a human life. And that drone sits on permanent display in the Smithsonian today. And we've,
you literally made history. How cool is that?
Well, our team did. Yeah, it's amazing. And that's allowed us we fly humanitarian missions in the Ukraine. We do demining. We deliver insulin into besieged cities. It's very, very rewarding and an honor.
And it's been really easy, right, Cam? You just download everything from the cloud, hit go, and it just happens.
Yeah, yeah, buddy. There are moments, on a weekly basis where all I do is I just scroll this video set that I've set up that's just all about don't quit, don't ever quit. The story of the devil says to the warrior, beware of the storm, and the warrior says, I am the storm. Yeah. And if you just don't believe, if you're just not that convicted, you come up with
or should be convicted
reasons a day of why you should not be doing this. Right. And that's not even just what everybody else is telling you. So yeah, it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. As I often say, happy Monday. And it's not Monday. I'm like, hey, if you're a founder, every freaking day is Monday.
Every day is Monday. Every day is payroll. Every day is, something. So, it's interesting. When I see the work that you're doing, I have a sense of the struggle, that's driving the work that you're doing, and just keeping the teams together, working with your shareholder base, satisfying customers, developing good product, changing mindsets. And Cam,
it's like you get from you've been at this for a while. You get from one stage to the next stage, and it's never good enough, right? It's like, well, you have no product. Okay, here's the product. Well, the product's not good enough. Oh, you're not selling enough. You're not outside of California. Okay, now you're outside of California. Well, you're not in all the states. So you'll never satisfy everyone. You just need to just keep plugging away. Yeah. And, I find it humorous because at some point, these naysayers, they got to get tired of being wrong over and over and over again. And you just got to keep, get knocked down, get back up, dust yourself off, and, be ready to throw some punches back.
I often wonder, I feel like this, I kind of feel like we're not having a technical discussion. We're having a mental health discussion here.
Well, come on, Cam. You gotta have a screw loose to be a founder in the first place.
And you do, and I wonder if some of those character defects that I have of, people pleasing, or always wanting to demonstrate my value by performance, or, low self-esteem, or whatever you want to call it. I just wonder if those naysayers aren't my best friend. If those naysayers, as much as it personally hurts, right? When you know the commitment that you're putting into it and what you're really trying to do, if they're not put in front of me, like, because that's what motivates me.
I mean, I always use the term negative fuel.
Yeah.
Like, keep telling us no. Just keep saying it. Like, you're just fueling the wrong fire. And that's what fueled us the last, 10 years to literally will this into existence. Because if we would have just listened to the first, I don't know, 50, 100, 1,000 people that said no, like, we wouldn't be sitting here. But I don't know. You got to have, as I often say, an irrational, illogical, almost, I don't know, just laser focus on, I'm going to get this done by hook or by crook, one way or another, as long as it's not illegal, immoral, unethical, I'm going to go do it, and forces to happen. And then little by little, you actually, things start happening. And then you get a little bit of momentum, and, you got to have a lot of support, and not everybody can be a naysayer. You got to rely on a lot of people that will, are extremely gracious and kind and support, even in the worst of times, when, like, all hell's breaking loose and everything's going to fall apart. It's, I don't know, a day and a half now, high risk of the government shutting down here in the States. And, some of us that, that can have an impact. Fortunately, we were able to kind of squeeze by a kind of really important thing that I'm excited to tell you about. But, it was like, okay, we've got, like, I don't know, 60 minutes before this thing closes, and we got to get this approval from the SEC and FINRA. And, like, I don't think we're going to make it, like, woof. And just made it. So,
and those are the things when somebody's on you about why this sale wasn't big enough, or why this number wasn't announced soon enough, or why this, like, the intricacies behind, having to deal with a regulatory body, and then a customer that has a regulatory body, and then an ISO certification, and then a financing, and then your HR matters, and it all, like, everything is so interdependent. It's like, hey, just send me that contract. Why can't you just get the NDA over here? Like, we talked a day ago. Why isn't the NDA? I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you know how many approvals and things? And you had one change in the NDA, and that's holding up a whole, like.
Hey, at the end of the day, Cam, people don't care. The auditors don't care. The lawyers don't care. 100%. The investors don't care. You just got to get up and fix it and move on.
That's why it's hard. That's why it's hard. Yeah. It's amazing. I got to throw one thing out to you. Like, I love, I follow you guys' stock, obviously. And I love, like, you just constantly put out the customer announcements. You just constantly keep people updated. And of course, I know those updates are never good enough, and they should be more, and all the rest of it.
There's no win, right? You put out too much news. You don't put out enough news. The news isn't big enough.
It's all getting diluted. It's all, but it really demonstrates and shows to me the commitment that you and the management team have to keeping people informed, right? And I see that, like, I get to see that constant progress of what's happening. So, knowing what in terms of, like, operationally and stuff, and I personally believe what your sophisticated shareholders know is when they look at those announcements, and there's obviously good reason you can't put specific numbers beside them, in front of them, and all, like, for you, it's common sense because you've been in it, but lots of other people don't understand that. But what a sophisticated investor, I believe, or what I've been told and it come to experience, is that on those types of announcements, what's more important is the why, not the what. Okay, what was done? What was the number? Why was that done? Why did that customer buy? Right? So it's those indicative reasons and intuitions as to why that customer renewed. Why did that customer put 2 more machines on that lot? Why is that in the same industry as this? And when you start piecing all of those, and that's what, like, I love investing. I do not trade, but I love investing, long-term investing, because that, to me, that's the art, is watching the why of certain customers getting involved, and then kind of comparing that to the strategy that Bill has talked about in his town hall meetings and stuff. And you know what? I got to tell you, Bill, with you, it all lines up. It all lines up. And that's why, it's the old Peter Lynch type of model. Like, would I put these robots on my facilities, right? With that, and I would, right? That's the type of, okay, so this is something to invest in. And anyway, I'm pumping your tires, but I just have to say it's really well done.
Well, it's nice to hear it. I mean, I see it. I can see 5, 10, 15, 20 years where this is going to go, basic first principles. Like, I don't think, the public safety infrastructure process and kind of what we're using today can remain the same. So a change is required. Market for crime's not going away. We're at the intersection of like a number of really important technologies. Like, you're going to tell me 5, 10, 15 years from now, like robotics, AI, and autonomy is not important. Like it's nonsensical. We just got to continue to execute. And I think I often forget, and so do our investors and the media, and even my own teammates. Like, no one in the history of mankind has ever done this before. And, right? It's like you're in uncharted territory, and I love the analysts asking me, like, "Yeah, can you give me the guidance for second quarter of next year?" And it's like, okay, no one's ever done this before. You want me to predict like what's going to happen? I don't know. Probably not a good idea. So,
well, that's the challenge of a blue ocean, right? Is that you don't have comps, or you don't have reliable comps, right? But that's why there's the opportunity for higher margin, bigger growth, and all of those types of things. As that blue turns green, turns darker brown to red or whatever, you'll have that predictability, obviously. But at this point, that predictability is that's pretty tough.
The comps that's hard for us, right? Because I literally have had this conversation with multiple analysts. They don't know what bucket to put us in. Do we put you in the public safety bucket, the autonomy bucket? Do we put you in security? Are you a drone? Are you in the AI bucket? Like, they don't know where to put us. And intellectually, I find it really funny. I've said this before, like, okay, so you're an investor and you want outsized outlier returns, but you want what you invest in to fit a certain profile and bucket. Like, that actually intellectually, logically makes no sense. If you want the outlier, it should not fit in the bucket, right?
That's true.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
Crazy.
I mean, that said, that's the structure of the framework that we're in,
yep.
and what we have to deal with, and the other upside of that is it's not a lot of people can survive and get through that. So it's because it is so tough and challenging. So hence the opportunity for folks like you and I to grind it through and.
So we're coming up. I think January is 2 years being publicly traded. When did you list?
Yeah, so we listed July 31, 21. So
21.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn the tables here. How are you enjoying being a publicly traded CEO?
Yeah, I love it.
You love it? Oh, I want to hear this.
No, I love it. I think the regulatory environment is overly burdened for small companies like us, and I think it's designed that way for many of the right reasons. To keep the smaller companies out of it. It's hard. I mean, your base overhead is $5 million a year between insurances and admin and just to start, and it's really an entirely other business that other than your business. So you have two businesses to be in and on. But I've had the great pleasure in being on a couple rides before where we had a stock at 17 cents and might even been 12 cents at one time, and $32, right? That's where it ended up. Based on really solid growth and right place, right time, which is never the case. It's always been a long and there's been a few of those. And so I know for us, and not to try to be promotional, but for the project that I'm in right now on Dragonfly, I see all those same indicators. I see all those same things. And so, we just recently opened a brand new plant, and you could just see the culture and the team. It's our second new plant that we opened this year. The culture and the team and the people, you just start to see it all gel, and you see the customers starting to line up, and everybody's really kind of getting it. And so I love it. I mean, there's certainly lots of days, lots of mornings where it's just like, like, damn, I just got shit all over again. And and those aren't easy days, but I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
I think for me, it is one thing that bugs the hell out of me. I mean, I can deal with all the other stuff. Actually, it's kind of cool in some cases. It's bloody expensive, as you noted. Yeah. The one thing that literally drives me nuts is I can't have any longer a normal conversation with another human. Like, I'm having to carefully edit myself, like MNPI, like I can't provide you any material, non-public information. So like I've got a caveat questions. People text me, like I can't answer that. Like it's hard, right? Even my closest friends, I can't have normal conversations with. And that drives me absolutely crazy. But other than that, it's quite a ride. And I've seen the underbelly of not nice things that happen in Silicon Valley when you're a private company, and there's quite an underbelly of Wall Street that's not all that clean either.
Listen, everybody would like to think their way is the easy way, the best way, the cleanest, the highest pedigree, and everything's a challenge. Everything's got its problems and blemishes and underbellies and all the rest of it. And those are the things that make it tough. And but if you make it, and I have no doubt you guys will be making it, the reward is incredible. Is incredible. Yeah.
I think we made a lot of progress. We still some investors get really frustrated with me when I say this, but I think, we're in the first inning. We're just getting started. Sure. And it's probably the most impactful thing is just seeing that we actually help reduce crime in an area and actually help the client. Like, I was told this would never work. Oh, really? Here's the data. And I got money to prove it. It's called, full price revenue, and it's at millions of dollars a year. And so now we just need, we're going through and I'm sure you've gone through the same, the growing pains of scaling a business. Things were a lot easier when you had a handful or a dozen clients, and some processes that you shouldn't have been, were fine then. You realize, like, if you're running at a pretty reasonable clip, like that's not going to work anymore. So it's like 100 or 1,000 little things that need to, kind of get either re-engineered or reprocessed or what have you. But it's a different skill mix, I think, for a lot of executives that sometimes can't make that transition from super scrappy startup to like, hey, the auditors are in town and like you're going to need to make sure everything's buttoned up, is a kind of sometimes a different operator, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think the CEO that progresses through all of those. I heard a great example actually today, as a matter of fact, that they talk about boats going down the Mississippi. There's a different captain for different sections of the Mississippi because it is so treacherous, right? And it's so and the sand shift and everything. It's like, and so one boat doesn't go from one end of the Mississippi to the other with one captain. And I just thought that was a really great analogy as to what can happen with teams and management teams sometimes. And I think the senior management teams that do end up taking the entire trip are ones that are constantly recognizing where they've got to bring in talent and where they've got to bring in people. And it doesn't mean that they're not obviously going to continue to lead, but it means that parts of the leader, this is what I found anyways, parts of the leadership have got to be, left with other people that have better expertise in those particular parts of the leadership. Okay. So, I find that, more as certainly in the past projects, and this one is unfolding the same way, as it matures along, the work I do becomes more and more, specialized, right? And
we've got this concept of, internships. Like at one point I was the accounting intern, I was the legal intern or whatever. I just need to fire myself. Like, okay, can we get some professionals in here to do this stuff? And little by little, you end up growing and, starting to figure out, what, got to be honest with yourself, what you're
Yeah.
really not good at, and, get some other folks to work it. And, in our case, we got really lucky. Like the management team that started the company 10 plus years ago is still the management team today, which is not usual and not normal. But, it speaks
Really
to this
impressive.
level of, relentless nature that a good portion of the Knightscope team has. It's like, we're just
Yeah.
going to keep plugging away
Yeah.
until we beat everyone into submission, that this is going to happen. And here we are.
Yeah.
So what
You had mentioned,
hard-hitting questions do you have for me, Cam? Otherwise,
well,
it's gonna look like a commercial.
yeah, exactly. Okay. So sounds great. So listen, you first of all, you had mentioned that you had something exciting to tell us. So let's get that out of the way.
Uh, um, so I'm gonna give a slightly longer kind of preamble to this, only because I think it might be helpful for some entrepreneurs. But and also I think you're familiar with Regulation A plus. So prior to 2013, 2015, it was kind of illegal for a normal individual to go buy shares in a private company. It was basically the elite and the accredited were allowed to do so. And then the administration at the time changed and got the Jobs Act enacted. And then with certain rules and what have you, you could go raise a bunch of money from retail investors while you're still private. And so before the public listing of Knightscope, we had raised well over $120 million from 35,000 investors, no VCs, no hedge funds, no PE shops.
Yes.
One of the reasons we went down that path was, I sit here in Silicon Valley, 100, $200 billion goes into startups every year. And in 2013, when we started Knightscope and trying to get it funded, you would have thought this would kind of been easy. Like, oh, you got autonomy, you got AI, you got robotics, you got EV technology. Like, you're going to go make this crazy new set of game-changing public safety technologies. Like, the money should flow easily. And all I got was no, 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 no again, and no again. It took me like 364 days to raise the seed round. And no VC would write a check. And I'm determined to make good on what I pledged after 9/11 to myself, which was someone hit my town. I'm profoundly pissed off about it. And so the rest of my life, I'm dedicating to better securing our country, and no VC is going to tell me no. So that's why I forced the financing to happen, so that we would have at least some of the capital needed to grow Knightscope. And so this was all fine and good. We, took the company public almost 2 years ago, and then I got to meet the underbelly of Wall Street, where there's 200-300 debt providers that can sometimes prey on micro cap and small cap companies with highly toxic debt structures or death spirals, depending on which way you want to look at it. And I'm like, not going down that route again. Like, this is just not good. And oh, by the way, it looks like the same movie I just saw in Silicon Valley. Like, the entrepreneur doesn't get to set the terms, doesn't get to, has to sell a board seat or two. Not great. And what I don't understand is, why is it that retail investors don't have an opportunity to participate in high yield debt offerings from a publicly traded company that's much more established than a private one? And lo and behold, you find out that a publicly traded company can actually use the Regulation A plus framework for equity or debt. And then I couldn't figure out for the life of me, like, why would a publicly traded company do an equity offering through Reg A? Because you've got a publicly traded security. Now you're going to do an illiquid, maybe with some warrant coverage or something. You're kind of selling oranges and oranges. Like, this is going to be like a hard sell. But why couldn't we do like a high yield debt opportunity for retail investors, and not be cornered into some highly toxic financing instruments where someone shows up and goes, yeah, I want 5, 10, 15, 20% discount versus the 5-day VWAP, and I need 200 or 300% warrant coverage. Oh, and I may or may not have another fund over here, shorting your stock while we do that transaction. And then we're going to convert that note in block transactions and crush your stock while we continue to give you more money. Like, I'm not doing that again. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's see if we can do this. Well, with a few minutes to spare, and by the time this airs, it'll be live. We got our public safety infrastructure bond offering through the regulatory process and got it qualified through FINRA and the SEC to raise $10 million through the Reg A format to give a high yield debt opportunity to retail investors that otherwise would never have access to this. So it's kind of real simple. Let's say you invested $10,000 to help the company move forward, help with public safety. It's non-dilutive to our existing shareholders. Well, what do you get out of that? Well, we'll pay you 10% interest cash annually. And then after 5 years, we'll give you your principal back. And that way you get a lucrative transaction for the investor, and the company gets semi long-term stable capital, so we can continue to grow without the shenanigans of Wall Street. So similar to what we did in the private sector, disintermediating VCs from the process, we're looking to disintermediate some of these toxic lenders on Wall Street. So you can learn a little bit more at bond.knightscope.com. So I was itching to share that with you, Cam, because I think you might have understood everything I just said.
Too well. Far too well. Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah. It means I've lived it, been through it. It was probably about 2013 that in a different project, I took down our first death spiral. Well, I was probably even soon, probably 08 or maybe even, oh my gosh, I'm way off here. It was in the early 2000s, and nobody from the OG that invented these things, and I thought it was the greatest thing in the world until I found out. I just wasn't smart enough to figure out what was going on until it happened. Yeah. And so anyway, I've never done one since, obviously, but it really interesting. And man, Bill, that's that tenacity to grind it out, find another way, come up with something innovative, something that works for everybody, and you trailblazed, right? So I mean, I'm going to take a real close look at that, right? Because I mean, you're just creating a win-win scenario for everybody involved. And congratulations, and probably a big thank you from the tech space and the tech industry to provide another instrument that allows entrepreneurs, which is the lifeblood of the country, that allows entrepreneurs, the lifeblood of democracy, frankly, that allows entrepreneurs to have an option to thrive. So
I mean, all founders are trying to do is do right by their shareholders and grow their businesses. Yeah. Why is it that we have in this country a massive screwed up capital formation process? Like, in the private sector, right? I
think it's important that it gets screwed up. I think it's important. Listen, I think I'm just going to push back. You and I can sit here and justify and sit in our high horse all day long about how amazing we are and how downtrodden shit happens. But the reality is those folks are entrepreneurs too, right? They sit on a different side of the equation than folks like you and I. But if I think about economies that don't have the ruthlessness that our economy has. Those are economies that are really in jeopardy. Those are everybody, China's going to rule the world, Russia's going to rule the world. They're not. They can never withstand really hard times. Ultimately, those things come to an end because they don't have the checks and balances in place that sometimes completely screw over guys like you and I. There's a lot of cannon fodder that happens to folks like you and I who have the right idea, the right intention, right?
One day,
but here's what happens.
One day I'm going to write a book on
guys
this.
Guys like you not just get through it, but you change, you improve the system, right? So now there's a new instrument out there for guys like me or other folks out there that can take a look at other means and ways to do it. Like that's the progress that's happening.
Okay.
Like, and don't get me wrong, I would rather not have had the sleepless nights and look a lot older than I am, and all the rest of it, be and had the tough times in my life because of it. But I think it's kind of part of the lifeblood of why we live in the greatest society in the world. And I know a lot of people like to shit on it, but it's brutal, but it works, and as a society we survive, I think, because of it.
But on the end of the day, founders don't get the support that they really need, and they can't say some of the things I say and do because the supposed only source of capital is that VC or is that debt provider, right? And one day, hopefully, I'll write a book and kind of share the lessons learned. But a few things drive me crazy, Cam. It's like, okay, you guys are providing all this capital to innovate. You want to disrupt every sector in the economy, but you want to change the fundraising process. Whoa. Don't mess with my 2 and 20. And I'm going to get a covered. I mean, Cam, you're listed on NASDAQ under DPRO, right?
Yeah.
If someone bought, 5, 10, 15% of your shares tomorrow, like, emergency board meeting, get the PR crisis communication people together. We need to figure out a plan. We have a activist single shareholder, and you can figure out the acronym, right? But in the private sector, someone writes a term sheet, the CEO accepts it, someone buys 20% of their company, steals 2 board seats, and they send out a celebratory press release the next day, and it's like, what? You just let the fox into the hen house. And for founders not to have an opportunity to find the right capital for the right type of business is just wrong.
Listen, so you've opened up an option for them, because lots of those founders go in there, they're happy as heck to have that branded VC come in and take that because it's value add.
The 0.1% of the founders that actually get funded.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Right.
Yeah. But maybe that's kind of why it works too. Like if we look at the returns out there of the 3.1% that get funded, how many of those are even successful? 1%?
No, well, probably
it's a brutal
if I remember right, it was like, I don't know, point something percent of founders that go pitch a VC get funded. And then once those get funded, 95% of those fail.
Okay, and then so Bill, so what about all those funds out there that fail? What about all those funds out there
exactly
that go, hey, I'm going to be different. I'm going to be a good guy. I'm going to work for the founder. I'm going to work for the company. I'm going to work, and those things blow up because founders blow up, right? Because companies implode. Yep. Like not everybody out there is an amazing rock star like you and I. Totally kidding, right? Yeah, but and listen, and I've had a couple of successes. I definitely had a couple blow-ups too, and people didn't make money on those blow-ups. So I'm just I think it needs to be tough. I think it needs to be really hard. You wouldn't have come up with this new instrument. You would not have come up with this new instrument.
I gotta disagree. This shouldn't be this hard for founders to get capital. Like, we only have and I'm going to say only 20,000 startups in Silicon Valley. It should be a multiple of that. Why aren't there 100 Elon Musks? You have all these VCs on all these podcasts talking about a big game and everything else, and they can't figure out a new financing structure to actually tackle big issues, right? It's like, let's go fund the next photo sharing app. Like, give me a break.
This is the most competitive game in the world. Why aren't there? That's like saying, why aren't there 1,000 Eli Mannings? Because there aren't.
I'll push back on that. I bet you, if you fix the capital formation process in this country, you will have an army of entrepreneurs that would show the world a completely different way and accelerate the growth in the country massively. And that is one of the biggest problems we have, I think, in our country. And I agree with you, relative to other countries outside the the US, we have a good system, right? I'm just saying it could be great. It could be killer if we could fix the capital formation process and actually get more capital distributed to more founders for them to be able to make a bigger impact. Why is all this dry powder sitting on the sidelines is ridiculous, right? Why? Well, you got money managers who aren't really doing their job because they just got a commodity that they're shipping out cash, and that's it.
Maybe they don't have a quality place to put
it. So we're circular now, right? Yeah. If the entrepreneur can't get the initial capital to get going because the process is all screwed up, then the LPs aren't going to put in more money because there's no place else to put it. Well, you kind of created the problem in the first place. That's my point, right?
Listen, I fundamentally agree, right? Like more capital in the hands of more focused, dedicated entrepreneurs candidly will solve the world's problems.
Yeah,
it will. But it's got to be hard. It's got to be hard for a reason.
Listen, anyone who thinks they're going to put up a website and just download money from the cloud is just, out to lunch. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, it shouldn't be point something percent. It should be, I don't know, 3, 5, 10% of real founders should get that initial capital, should be able to figure out how to grow those companies. And we shouldn't have this amount of dry powder sitting on the sidelines. It's just the whole system screwed up, and the guys financing the innovation economy can't seem to figure out how to fricking finance the capital formation process and innovate there. Like, there's a fundamental, you're disingenuous. You're not a serious person if you really can't figure out how to innovate in your own space.
All right, so let me hit you with a few hard questions, okay? As somebody.
Okay, let's go. Now we got warmed up, Cam. Let's go.
All right. So because so when I look at the model and I look at what Knightscope's doing, here's a couple of things that weigh on my mind. What doesn't weigh on my mind is management, commitment, jockey, total addressable market, the right space, right time, all those types of things. You're there, okay? But what does weigh on my mind is pace and quality of innovation against market players who are not yet in your market, but you're building, improving their market. Okay, so let me be a real dick here. You got a device. It's a great device. It's better than most people realize, and it's incredibly practical for lots of different reasons. But you've got a device that's wheeling around a parking lot or a facility, and it does a bunch of things that are important. And you've got this, I'll call it SaaS model income, which is brilliant long term, coming in on it. And but it doesn't provide a lot of capital up front in order to really heavily reinvest, right? You've got these walking robots out there with unbelievable capabilities whose price is going to drop. Boston Robotics, et cetera. It's going to drop incredibly fast, right? How are you going to keep up with their pace of innovation? The fear I have is their price drops commensurate with the market that you're establishing and faster than you can put capital into your devices meeting their technology standard, right? So that's a mouthful and a handful, but that's what I think about, if I'm really thinking about strategically, Knightscope.
Okay. So first I'll concede the point. It's a massive frustration point for me. And part of this is, you got to follow the money. And usually when I do these conversations, I say stuff that some folks rather me not say, but that's, trying to, be as authentic and truthful as possible. So if I was back in Detroit with my old job, being an automotive executive, and I was going to go fund Knightscope internally, right? I probably would have gone to the board and asked for, $500 million.
You're right.
Probably 250 to start, and then another 250 to follow, kind of halfway through the process. And it probably should have taken 4 or 5 years-ish. And now you compare, the company's 10 years old and we only and this some people get ticked off about, you only raised $120 million. And for some people, they say that's a humongous number. How could you have not gotten all this done with 120 million? And from where I sit and experience, I know one is that's a shortfall, and 120 million over 10 years is 12 million bucks a year, is $1 million a month, is not a lot of money, relatively speaking. So you would not have built a Tesla or SpaceX with 120 million bucks over 10 years. So capital starved. Probably the huge biggest mistake I made was in 2018. I hired a banker to go raise some money for us, and they failed miserably for 6 months. And that set a domino effect. And since we, publicly filed all this stuff, people can go follow the money. We were scrambling for years to recover from that screw up, and almost running out of cash for I don't know how long, till we finally got it fixed. But that set us back, and so we lost a couple of years in there of survival, which then created a bunch of technical and process debt. But investors don't care. We just need to go fix it. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is the humanoid type of thing. I'm excited for. I think there's still a lot of work in terms of power and use cases and the like. It's going to happen. I think it's going to happen a lot faster now that Tesla's involved. I think if you let the robotics industry onto its own deliver, a ton of respect for the Boston Dynamics folks, but the company's 30 years old. We're barely got one commercial product out the door. Like, that's not exactly where I would be focused. I think Elon's strategy of taking the billions and billions of miles and training and neural nets from the full self-driving side of the automotive part of the business and reapplying it in a different way is going to be a very, very lucrative opportunity for Tesla, and is going to really accelerate that process. But not to be funny, Cam, you're not going to have a bipedal robot doing 35 miles an hour patrolling a city or a highway. That's not the use case, and that's necessarily what we're primarily looking at over the long term. But the pace of innovation, absolute huge frustration for me, the management team, the board, everyone. And the best thing we can do right now is go raise some additional capital as carefully as we can without diluting our shareholders, so we can get back onto scaling the business, not just what we have, but building new things. So absolutely concede the point.
So that said, gosh, you got great humility, buddy. That said, I think you're meeting the market where the market's at, and there would be no market. So you're a product guy. I know you want different, bigger, better, stronger, faster innovation. It just means more money would have been spent for a sexier product, which a market which is still developing. Like, I'll just relate it to the drone industry a little bit, if you don't mind.
Please. And I've got a question for you on drones.
Okay. No, nothing hard. Okay, it's Friday.
No, I keep getting grilled. About drones. So I'm like, look, you know what? I'm going to ask Cam. I'm going to give you my canned answer and have you respond and see what.
Okay. All right. Sounds great. So in the drone industry, there's every single North American drone manufacturer since the beginning, and we've been around for 25 years. Every single North American drone manufacturer has gone out of business. Every single one. Airware, Air Lily, 3DR, GoPro, list goes on. Every single one of the ones, at least the ones I mentioned there, every one of them tried to buy Dragonfly.
And that's insane, Cam, because I think you know this. I think if you ask the normal media or the general public, they would probably think there's 2, 3, 4, 5 drone companies. There's tons of them all over the place. Probably only the politicos would say like there's the Chinese one, and that's it. But I think in general, most people think there's a lot more than I think actually exists.
There's 4, 5. that are manufacturers. There's a bunch of assemblers and a bunch of brand names and but ones that can assemble, NDA compliant, sell in the military, all that type of stuff. There might be less than 5, and none of them, including us, could meet the demand right now. But that's another whole point. So every single, Airware, amazing, right? John Chambers, he's the chairman of Airware. A couple $100 million from Andreessen Horowitz. They've got a couple $100 million into a bunch of different ones, including now Skydio.
I think they were founded this. I think we were in Andreessen's offices the same year.
Yeah. So but they all were whiz bang. They were all like, it's got to have this, it's got to have that. But they didn't actually understand where the market was at and where they had to meet the market. So regulation for these are aircraft that we're talking about.
Yep.
And so you can't put up you can't scale a commercial industry when there's no commercial regulation. And so we had a very keen knowledge of that. So we survived by doing contract.
You should tell the autonomous people that who just burned a couple $100 billion.
Yeah. Listen, it's you got to meet the market where the market, premature scaling, call it whatever you want. And so what I do see, in your defense to that point, what I do see, and one of the reasons that I'm so bullish is that you guys have a product that's in the market where the market is at. And as that market becomes more mature, right, and is willing to accept further levels of innovation. If you had something that was twice as expensive and did 10 times as many things, I don't think you would be getting 10 times the price for it right now. I don't think so.
I think that's fair. I mean, I'll try to say it politely. It's not like the public safety, law enforcement, security industry / sector is the most technologically progressive, high adopters of new technology, right? That this is we're selling into a very backward and difficult marketplace.
Yeah. Budget, timing, constraints, sales cycles, relationships, I understand that market. And so anyway, and all of these companies had the big budget, had the big whiz bang, had the big, all that kind of, but they all are out of business today because they couldn't meet the market where the market's at. So, we had at time it felt like it was, a dagger in the back, this regulatory environment that wouldn't move. It ended up being our saving grace only because we knew it wasn't going to move for a long time. Now it's moving. And after 25 years, hopefully we're in the right spot at the right time. So, yeah. So anyway, I didn't mean to try to lay you out on that question. I just that's the one thing. But the saving thing is, I'm like, well, the rest of those folks, they don't have a product that could sell into this market anyway, and the price of their product will be dropping. But but you're in the market, right? And so your inherent incumbent advantage to with those relatingships and all the rest of it, I think, to me, override that. And
also, I think one distinguishing factor also to consider is, most of our business is outdoors where the crime actually occurs. Operating indoors versus outdoors is
that's great point. Actually, big
whole other planet. Like if we want to compare and contrast a humanoid robot going through a interior of a hospital, elevators, etc., that's really different and an order of magnitude easier than operating outdoors.
Yeah, all kinds of things.
Okay. All right, so here it is, Cam. Are you ready?
Gotcha.
All right, so I get this question, I don't want to say daily, weekly. So when's Knightscope going to add drones? And my answer is something along the following. So our long-term mission is to make the U.S. the safest country in the world. Criminals and terrorists can be anywhere. So if you think long-term, Knightscope needs to be everywhere, air, land, and sea. So that's the first answer. Second answer is I've got close to zero, if not zero, incoming prospective clients looking for drones to help them solve their problem. And this is a genuine question for you, Cam. So usually what I say is in 3, 5, 7, or 10 years, when the following issues get resolved, you'll likely either have a standalone Knightscope drone or drones flying out of our machines in different shapes and sizes. But here are my concerns thus far. And that people are working, like yourself, people are working on the following issues. But I think until these get resolved, I don't know how to deploy this just yet. And I'm happy to be schooled. So first, autonomous charging and recharging. I know there's a couple of players out there that have got it kind of working, but if you ever watch two officers try to launch a drone from their trunk, I mean, it's comical. And we don't have clients have time to remove and replace a battery, that sort of thing. So you need a very low cost, robust way to autonomously charge and recharge. I think sensor payload's a problem. Like you can barely, for some of these, put enough interesting things on it other than a camera. And then on top of that, you need some additional compute capabilities at the edge to process some of this stuff because there's not enough time to go up and down. And all that requires power, which then drives a huge flight time issue, like 5 or 10 or 15 or 50 minutes in the air is not what our clients need. In a lot of cases, you got data transfer issues if you need consistent quality live feed all the time. And then lastly, in a lot of cases, especially in the US, it's illegal to fly unless you go through 6, 9, 12, 15 months of nightmare paperwork, from what I understand. And so my thought was that those issues need to get resolved. And then we, Knightscope, need to be a little bit more thoughtful how you apply the technology, meaning it would be much more thoughtful, I think, if you were at a facility and our machines detected someone brandishing a weapon, actually had heard a weapon go off, autonomously launch the drone because you need immediate aerial reconnaissance for that 5, 10, 50 minutes time frame, and then it comes back and docks and doesn't go unless you need it for a specific mission or what have you, as opposed to a constant monitoring 24/7 like our machines do. It's more of a tactical type of usage as opposed to a constant monitoring. So that's what I've garnished from the drone industry thus far. So I'm going to turn it over to the expert, and feel free to let me have it if I'm way off base.
No, I think you're bang on. I think you're bang on. I would think the only thing that I would slightly disagree with there is your second point around sensors. Probably, nothing collects data better than a drone. And our drones, in a matter of seconds and minutes, can do anything from, depending on the sensors, map underground pipes to measure millimeter surveys, of buildings.
So what type of sensors and how many can you put on one drone at the same time?
There you go. So again, your use case, so just to finish the thought, to measuring carbon monoxide, to measuring bee pollen in the air or gases, or all the different aspects of public safety. The camera provides unbelievable data. If that's all you did was just the camera, the data that you've got is amazing. So, but 100% everything Steve Jobs said it, about the iPhone, and it's certainly very true in our industry. Everything begins and ends with battery management. That it's all power management. Yeah. And so, there is a real opportunity, I think, for in given the right amount of time, for a Knightscope really to be a battery management pack, right? That's that is at its base value proposition. That's pretty interesting. However, in the short term, I would agree with you. Having drones fly out of one of your units, it is not as practical a solution as having your units, communicate with a drone, which might be a Knightscope drone for sure. But but you've got that drone docked somewhere else up on the roof. It can deploy somewhere so quickly. It doesn't have to be within 500 feet or 500 meters. I mean, it's there in a minute, right? And when it's there, people know it's there. It's intimidating. You turn on a light, and that, rather than, maybe having your unit confront a situation and then, the risk of, deploying out of the box and they just have it come from somewhere else and be there as part of your integrated offering.
So what's the regulatory let's say we did a handshake deal right now and go like, hey, let's go work on a drone together. Like if we wanted to do that, and I've got a prospective client sitting over here ready to go, what's the regulatory process if it's a non-government, a private sector entity? Like,
yeah. So on a case by case basis, right? And this will change over time. Eventually, it'll just become a product line item, right? But on a case by case basis, right now, let's say it was a university. I'm making this up, totally, right?
Yeah.
A university comes along and they say, "Hey, we really love Knightscope, or this is what we want to do, but we do have this notion where we've got this one area, or we've got this area, we want to have drone oversight." Yep. And can you provide an integrated system? And let's say that product was designed by us, and it can be done, right? It's in very similar, not necessarily with autonomous robots like what you have. This is how it kind of works, right? You can deploy that drone from a drone in a box solution, which has the regulatory approval so that you don't have to do a visual flight inspection before it flies, right? So those rules just came into case. Now, if you're going to be doing flight over people or nighttime flights, you have to apply for a waiver over that particular area, right? And that can be, depending on the complexity, anywhere from 3 months to 3 years to get that way. And they just streamlined this process. So we just got special operations certificate certs, in about 4 days. But this was for wildfire applications, and it was an urgent scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, but you can get these waivers for a particular area that's all mapped out to do nighttime flights or flight over people, and the drone that's there is approved to do it. It might have to have
autonomous, or is there a drone operator?
No, autonomous.
Okay,
Autonomous.
So
and or remotely operated, right? They don't have to have visual sight. They can be sitting in a network operations center somewhere, or it can be launched autonomously and then taken over depending on what's happening. Yes, hey, there's an assailant there, or there's suspicious activity.
And the 3 months to 3 years thing, Cam, but
that's the reality of that's where people get excited about, hey, let's build this product, let's do this thing, and it's like, hey, that's you're pre-scaling because the market's not there yet. Now there's people that are working on this. So I 100% would imagine that this is something that Knightscope will be ideal to provide and have a trusted relationship. Like, I can see this being a huge market for you, but it's early. It's too early. Yeah. And I love what you said earlier, where it's like, when you have the demand signal, you then go get it. Like you already have customers and you're busy.
Like I'm almost over all the technical issues I outlined. Like, okay, flight time, we'll figure it out. The sensor payload, we'll figure it out. The data transfer and that sort of stuff, we'll figure it out. The one that I can't swallow is the regulatory problem. Like if I've got a client waiting, cash in hand, ready to go, and we're sitting there waiting for a cert, like that's not going to work.
So where I think the market is, and you can tell me different, if you had a customer that was interested in that today, it's probably a 3 to 6 month sales cycle anyway. They're going to want to go through testing, they're going to have committee, they're going to have that, whatever the case is. And so it's during that time that you're actually still doing all of your beyond visual line of sight waivers and stuff as well. But anyway, everything you said.
I think on average, you're probably right. But, we've had clients sign in 3 hours or 3 days, and we've had clients sign in 39 months. So it's all over the map. But I think you're generally right. Obviously there's budget cycles and everything else. You're the 3, 6, 9 months type of normal process.
Yeah. I think your product is absolutely natural to integrate with the drone, and it's just a matter of time for an integrated solution to happen. I don't think you need to rush it, though. I mean, it might make a great headline in the first few sales. I mean, people are doing this just with drones, right? But if they're doing it with drones and the unit that you have, which you guys are entirely unique in, now you have an offering that's uncompetable.
Yep. And it would make the Robot Roadshow even more fun.
Well, we
digress.
Yeah, we digress, and we'd love to be in that mix when and if the time is right for you guys.
Oh, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. All right, how are we doing on time there? I think we're probably a little bit over.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you bet.
You want to hit me with another one?
Yeah, sounds great. So, where do you, and I know you've got your numbers that you're working on, you can't give guidance. I get all that type of stuff. How do you plan on managing the the SaaS model that you've got? And what kind of assurances, if any, and I don't care if they're there or not, the shareholders have that, the nature of the model isn't going to create, the need for this a never-ending financing cycle that would continue to dilute the shareholder.
So I didn't correct you earlier, but dovetails into the answer here. So yeah, so let's say we get an order today. Now I got to fund this machine, right? And the client maybe 80% of the time pays monthly. There's a few that pay the whole thing up front, which fixes the cash problem. But we actually have a financing mechanism and partnership today that we utilize in order for us not to have that cash flow problem. So we announced a $10 million facility basically to finance that, so we don't have to have the ongoing cash problem. It's worked successfully. So we're able to do that and not have a never-ending issue. It's worth it because remember, after the machine's built, it's paid for more or less that first year with the revenue. The second, third, fourth, fifth year, it's a free machine, right? That can help generate revenue, and so that doesn't end up being a never-ending fundraising balance sheet nightmare of having all these assets out in the field or what have you. So that's been cured. I think the other kind of just inherent market thing, Cam, is why don't you sell the robots outright? Well, have you spoken to a client? Like, they're nickel and diming one guarding company against the other guarding company for 5 cents on a contract. You want to show up there and go, hey, you need to pay 6 figures for this robot. And oh, by the way, because we keep changing it and improving it in 3, 6, 9, 12 months, it's kind of out of date. Like, I think that's like a hard sell. And then you've got an intellectual property problem. Like, you probably don't want to see one of these show up on eBay somewhere, or the federal government wouldn't be happy with us. And then lastly, you've got a cybersecurity issue where if someone else has control of the machines, you're opening yourself up for risk and a breach. So for lots of reasons, the model is technologically attractive and financially attractive, but it does require scale. I think that's one of the things that some investors yet don't understand, that you have to have some level of critical mass for this to work. So let's say, just for example, we need to monitor all the machines across the country, which we do today. So we have a staff running 24/7 doing that. Well, just because we signed 10 new contracts doesn't mean we need to triple, quadruple, or quintuple the staff, right? That's kind of a fixed cost that you can spread across the whole thing. So that's why we're reasonably confident that in the next 12 months, 15 months, we should get to profitability because, we're continuing to grow organically. Hopefully you caught the craziness with the NYPD and Mayor Adams really putting out a big support for new public safety technologies, as well as our friends at the NYPD and MTA. And then hopefully here in the fourth quarter, we'll have the U.S. federal government doing something similar in terms of adopting a brand new set of technologies for public safety. So I have some reasonably good confidence, especially since we stuck with it for 10 years, Cam, and it just requires some scale.
Yeah. Well, listen, I would like to think, and hopefully this isn't arrogance on my part, I would like to think that, being in a similar type of, manufacturing product cycle, seeing, I see what you're doing, and you're doing the right things, and you've got the right answers, and you're employing the right techniques, not just strategies. Strategies for amateurs, right? like tactics and logistics are for experts, and that's what I see you guys doing.
I think we're living. I appreciate that. I think in some cases, I think we live parallel lives in some ways, because I see you go through some challenges and some big wins along the way as well. And so grateful for you taking time out of your crazy business.
Oh, you kidding me? Thank you. I'm just I'm a big man. Hopefully it didn't come across too promo-y or something like that.
On.
But I'm honored to be here, and it's and I'm going to continue to be.
I always try to tell people, I'm like, we closed 35,000 investors. Imagine how many people said no, and how many grueling questions and diligence we've been through. Like, there's at this point, it's like almost nothing you can say is going to offend me, basically. But I do appreciate the time, Cam. And if you guys want to learn a little bit more about what Cam's been up to, check out Dragonfly on NASDAQ. It's under DPRO, right? Is that right?
DPRO, DRAGANFLY.com. So thanks for that plug. I appreciate it.
All right. Awesome.
Okay. Hey, listen, I'll be in touch when you get time. Okay. You're amazing, and keep doing what you're doing for all of us.
I appreciate it.